In 2016, I approached Beth King, who's a friend and writing colleague, and said, let's do a horror film.
Two little ducks went out one day over the hills and far away. Mama duck said quack, 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 but none of the little ducks came back.
Where's my daughter?
We both had screenplays in development for years, and I said, let's just make a really cool indie little horror.
We were kind of going, should we do a short first and then try and make an amazing feature? And we thought, oh, let's just screw the short and go straight to the feature.
We met then twice a week for about 2 or 3 months, and we didn't know what idea we were going to write. We just said, let's brainstorm ideas.
So we just kind of started having workshop kind of sessions where we just tried to figure out what scared us. Touch points, I guess, of what scares me, I know, is like creepy children. Especially creepy children like laughing with mirth, and kids going missing.
Her mother, Janet, made a frantic call to police claiming the 9-year-old had been taken from her bed.
Looking at our favourite horror films and what it was about them that not only scared us but actually made them engaging as films in their own right. So we're a big fan of like The Exorcist, The Ring, The Grudge.
We came up with about 7 or 8 ideas for feature films, and The Surrogate, or what became The Surrogate, was the one that we got most excited about. We can't remember the moment where we came up with the hook of the story, which is that the ghost rebirths. But we know the moment we came up with that, we're really onto something now. This is really exciting and fresh, because it's always about how you give the audience what they like in a genre, but something that was original. We just hadn't seen that idea before.
To go through labour without being pregnant, it's unheard of.
We went a lot from a character point of view, which is kind of how I like to start all projects, because you're telling the protagonist's story.
It wasn't just both going, oh, that's good. It's like, Beth will convince me how to go with that. Or I'm like, this is why I think we need this bit out of here or around there.
We had these index cards, had key events, the turning points that we had to go through, and we used a lot of whiteboards, just kind of pinned things up in the order it should go.
We really liked what we had as a concept, but bits of the story weren't working, and we decided to change the entire setup. So we went back, and the original setup of the story was about a mother, so it was Nat and Rose, and they were going up to the country to visit their estranged mother and grandmother. But then we sort of thought about it and went, oh, it's not a very horror idea about a family coming together. So we sort of went, what about if it's a family getting ripped apart?
Happy birthday, dear Rosie. Happy birthday to you.
Dave sees things in the way a director sees, so he sees the shots and those kind of things in the realism of how we can shoot it. But then he also has a writer's brain. I come at it a lot from an emotional character point of view, and I feel like we kind of meet at a good spot where it's a combination of how the actual picture's going to look and the emotional journey involved.
Once we got to the screenplay stage, Beth writes very quickly in those drafts, and so she's really good at just starting to spit out scenes. So some of the scenes we sort of wrote together, other times she would do a pass of the draft or a pass of scenes, and then I would do a pass of them. That was about 2 years of writing, on and off.
Reading this screenplay, I remember I was just sitting there on my phone after work one day, just going through it, and I didn't leave for 2 hours because I just had to finish it. I couldn't actually stop.
I loved the relationship between the mother and the child. Like, to me, it was sort of very reminded me of like Babadook. It's a horror film, but for me, that relationship was kind of at the heart of it.
I started joining some dots and wondered whether Dave should speak with a friend, Confer Cabo, who I knew had already backed some horror films.
I just went in there to ask his advice, and I thought he'd produced these films. He was actually executive producer and had financed them, and but I still didn't know that at this stage in the meeting, and we just really hit it off and both had this deep love for horror films and ghost horrors and Southeast Asian horror films. And he just then asked what my script was about. And I said I pitched it to him, and he said, "Oh, that sounds interesting. Can you send it?"
He shared all of the different versions of the scripts.
Later that night, he said, "Let's meet again next week to discuss it."
I like to take risk, and once I trust someone that can deliver it, there's no point for me to, get myself entangled in it, because I know my strength, and directing is not my thing.
All the way through the process, he's been supportive of every aspect of the production. He's given some ideas. He gave some really good ideas on casting. A few little script notes, but gave me total creative control.
I think it's been a very good, easy kind of involvement.
I'd never cast children before, let alone directed them.
And David told me, I said, "Have you heard of Don't Work with Animal Children?" I got 3 of them here. One of them's headache. 3 of them could be really difficult.
The first one who came through was Ellie Tevlis. She was really good at Ava and Lisa.
I think he's the kind that chases sheep, like on a farm. And his puppy is. The tag says Indy. He likes you. Mummy left him alone in the bathtub, so I pushed his head under, and when the bubble stopped, he turned blue. Mummy lied to the police, but then I made her more angry, so she drove me to the country.
She understood the key aspect to Lisa. She's a child doing horrible things, but she's feigning innocence. And that was really difficult to explain to children. How do you explain to 10-year-olds irony? But Ellie just got that. The word came back that she actually really wanted to play Lisa, but she was happy to do either character. And I thought, great, I'll put her in as Lisa and keep looking for Ava. We also found Rose on that day. We had a great little actress who I thought would be good for the role. She was pushing the age bracket a little bit, but we were only a couple of months off shooting, so that wasn't going to be a problem. So when we went into the first lockup was one of the worst moments of my life, because all contracts become void in a pandemic. Those first few months in particular was a very long period. It was just like we might have lost the finance on the film, and it was terrifying because it might take another year to find it. It might take 4. It might not ever happen. I can't sum up how grateful I am that he sat out that period when the global economy's collapsing, and he could have pulled his finance but chose not to.
There's an aspect of that role where Rose is all about innocence, but the actress was, really amazing actor, but she just didn't have that, that 10-year-old innocence. She was becoming a teenager.
It was certainly the most unpleasant aspect of directing the whole production, which was to have to recast that role. We thought we'd seen every child actor in Melbourne, and we had to really, redouble our efforts.
We had another call out, and I just remember this moment when, I was, a bit sort of sitting on the edge of my seat in terms of, are we going to find our Rose?
I was told it was a scary movie, and I was like, ooh, spooky. And I was really excited. And so I started learning my lines, and then I did the audition.
And I just remember getting the audition tape from Taysha, and I just felt like this instant oh, thank God, we've totally, we found her.
Talking to someone won't help.
How do you know?
Nothing works. Moving house didn't work. My Uncle Bill gave it to me because I love dinosaurs.
Oh, which is your favourite dinosaur?
The Micropachycelosaurus, because that was the longest name. It's a video assignment of our family tree. I have to interview you, Nana, and Uncle Bill. What if the mum tries to get me?
I really liked her performance style. It needed a lot of work, but you could see the raw talent and potential. Kestie and I met in a park with Taysha and her mum. What was really interesting about Taysha, she's very confident and she dresses really fashionably. But the key part to Rose's character is she represented innocence. She wanted to climb the trees in the park. And it was just seeing that innocence in her in that moment that I went, yeah, she will really work for the role.
We even have tap and go.
Wow. I don't need a receipt. Thanks.
When I first read the script, I thought it was really, really well written. And I've been wanting to do another horror film for a long time, and I was waiting for something that really spoke to me.
It was my day off, and I spent most of the time at home, mostly.
Can anyone verify that?
Where is this going?
Please answer the question.
Yes, my daughter.
And I also was drawn to just the groundedness of the characters, I think, and just the reality that it was based in, and then all these really unreal things happening to these characters.
What did you do with the baby?
There is no baby.
Natalie, I don't want this to become a criminal investigation.
It wasn't like the normal route that actors do, which is to audition for a role. So it was quite lovely. I was on a director's board of the Victorian College of the Arts, and on the board was the producer of The Surrogate.
Yeah, so I asked her to be involved, and she wanted to see the script.
I started to read the script, and I'm a third into it. I go, I really don't want to read this script because I'm so scared. And that was a really good sign.
And she loved the script, so then we caught up with David in the cafe again. It's always through coffee. It's just the amount of coffee we consume is quite a lot.
And the director approved of me, which was fantastic. And then I was offered the role.
How do you create a character? I know, it's like, so many different ways in, and it's different for every job.
As soon as I was able, started writing music, and we ended up writing 20 minutes of music, just a script. I submitted that set of music to Dave Willing. He sent it on to Kestie. Much to my amusement, she was apparently listening to this music, which was really quite intense during her morning walks.
I found music really helpful. I used to in the beginning when I started acting, and then music sort of started too much in my head maybe, but now I think I'm finding music helpful again. Because it's so emotional, isn't it? Like, music just gets straight to the emotion.
You definitely weren't pregnant. No. I mean, I remember when you had Rose, you were a whale.
I love rehearsing with actors, and everything I've directed, I've always done rehearsals. And with children, we needed to get them comfortable and get them as prepared as they could, because they all had really big, difficult scenes.
Grandma,
Rose?
do you like sleeping alone without Grandpa?
The thing is, with anger, it doesn't mean you have to yell it. So it can even be like, talking to someone won't help. Nothing works. Moving house didn't work.
Because your mum's not understanding.
Tayshia's role was really demanding. The best thing to do would be to get her in for a couple of days of rehearsal without any of the other cast members.
I really wanted to make sure that it was like very simple for her, like she knew what the tone of the scene that she was going into. And then we just went through and did some line reads of each of the scenes that she was in, and I played all of the different characters.
Close your eyes.
Is it safe?
Absolutely. How do you know? Well, the little girl, I know she frightened you, but she didn't mean to.
The next phase was about really getting Kestie and Tayshia to bond, because I thought that was the crucial part, is getting those two connected, so that way they can emotionally trust each other on set.
Introduced me to my people who I'm working with and I'm acting with, so maybe I could feel more comfortable. So I know, so on the exact day I have to talk to them. So yeah, it helped a lot.
The rehearsal process was great, because a lot of those actors I hadn't met before, and I just met them for the first time at rehearsal, and it really struck me how good everyone was, and how different everyone's processes were. We would just go in and just have a play, and David allowed us to sort of play around with different ideas, and then we'd sort of hone in and get specific about things.
With the 18-day shooting schedule, I didn't want to be burning a lot of our on-set time with trying to work out the blocking, and so we were able to nut aspects out of that.
Where? I think it's a house. Stop.
Keep your hand on there. Yep, and then you reach out.
She was in the darkness. Then she found you. But you're not the first.
Not the first, and then next you.
Come on. I'm sorry. Then on the day of the shoot, everybody was like super prepared, which you don't always get on a film. Sometimes you just have to show up.
What's hard for actors is that some of them might only be in 1 or 2 scenes in a film, and they might only be on set for a couple of hours in total of production, and they've just got to drop straight in and try and pick up where the crew is at. And you know, that's a tough ask, and that rehearsal period really helped with getting them comfortable. So by the time they'd been on set, they'd already run their scenes with Kestie.
Hi sweetie, Marita here. Can you prep one of our toe taggers for everything?
Natalie, what are you doing here? You're following me? I had to. I knew that you were lying.
I don't know. I'll just have to see, you know? Because I mean, when you're around unhinged people, it's a little frightening, isn't it? You know?
Yeah.
It's like, Natalie, you know, what are you doing here? The rehearsal period was just really lovely and easy and comfortable.
When you're following her around, you've seen her run out of this house, and then like following out is Janet Bayer, and it's like,
Yeah.
what the fuck?
Yeah, and you see my reaction, so
Absolutely.
I don't have to say her name then, yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
absolutely.
Okay.
It's just like...
Yeah. Like, wow, this is even more than I thought it was. Because I think all actors, when they first start a film, there's a sense of anxiety about what's the director going to be like? Will he be mean? Will he be, like, lovely? Will he understand your creative process?
Even if I wouldn't even know how to explain it. Where do I
Exactly,
begin?
yeah. You wouldn't know how to, but also that's not your goal or intention to even do that. It's not like it's when it's in a relationship you want to build or mend or whatever. It's just like, exactly. I'm so far beyond that. I'm so far beyond all that shit.
Really good rehearsal for all the scenes. We could go over and over them, try different things.
I mean, I think the scene has to maybe move and not too ponderous. It's not too ponderous. Natalie, what are you doing here?
What are you following me?
I know you were lying.
You don't know anything.
No, I understand that you are a threat to Rose.
You're wrong.
Then why were you at a child killer's house?
I'm trying to help my daughter.
Natalie, you need help, and I am going to get you.
You can't help me. Just get out of my way. Get out of my way.
Let's just try, you know, I had to, you were lying to me. You were lying.
I had to?
Yeah, I had to, you were lying. I'm trying to help my daughter. I wonder if there's a exasperation in it, or let's just play around with a few different times.
No, I know. If it was gonna be anything, yeah, there's exasperation.
I know that you are a threat to Rose.
You're wrong.
Then what were you doing at Janet Bayer's house?
I am trying to help my daughter.
Yeah, like that. Oh my God, you're freaking me out.
Rehearsals with Dave, that was fun. So we just went through how Lisa'd move, how she'd talk. I did a little research for myself, which made it a bit easier. So I had a look at, I saw Pennywise, who's played by Bill Skarsgård, but I only saw a self-test. I haven't watched the movie. If I did, it would give me nightmares for like ages. He is very childish when he talks. And Lisa's very childish because, well, she's a child, but also because she has that element in her.
I'm your daughter now.
My little book for Surrogate has no pictures in it, and it has no poetry, which is very unusual. This film was about something I couldn't see. I couldn't work out what was going on. And so my book for it replicates that.
Nana.
Oh, God. Come in, darling. Come on.
The thing that stood out most to drew me in that period is just how committed all the actors were to doing the best job they could possibly. They were all very enthusiastic to get into the rehearsal space. They're really open to ideas. They came with their own ideas. Then when we got on set, particularly with Kestie, it was just bang, like it just went up another couple of levels.
I mean, I'm not the biggest horror fan in terms of, it's not my genre that I normally watch, but I love the imagery behind Lisa.
I remember getting up to like, it was pretty much the end of the script, and I put the script down to go get a cup of coffee or water, and the wind just blew all the sheets everywhere, and I got this massive cold chill, and I was like, oh, horror films. And I think that was probably the point where I think I need to do this, because it felt like one of those weird spirity signs.
The first main piece of direction that I gave them with the design on the film was that we need to ground the film in Act 1. It's an everyday, normal, suburban house, and then the audience gets lured in, and then you ramp up the horror.
Rose's room was the very first room that we picked, that we started to design. Almost like an urban minimalist. Like we stripped back everything and just put in the key things, that trying to keep it as authentic as possible without overloading it with props, which is really hard to do. I want to put everything in, plants, pots, everything, but it was actually Nick Moon, who was doing standby, that told me to start stripping back. I don't want them to sit there and go, oh wow, that's designed so well. I want them to just go, oh, that's a house.
Designing Act 1 was really about what does the house look like before Lisa is in there, and then after Lisa comes into the house.
Act 1, all with practical lights, so everything was inviting, less shadows, less contrasty. Hitting Act 2 into more of a contrasty look, where we started to get rid of all of our practical sources, and now everything was lit mainly moonlight, or mainly by whatever you could see, if there was a torch or if there was a TV or anything like that.
By the time we get to Act 3, we're not seeing any light sources at all. From a cinematography point of view, we started out with very warm colours. Then when we got into Act 2, we went from a warmer look to a cooler look. When we get into the final act, there's that misdirection at the start where Nat believes that Lisa has gone, and it starts off with that beautiful push-in shot in the bathroom, and things are warm and yellow again.
And her mother was very sick. She couldn't love her children the way that I love you.
But then when Nat steps out of the bathroom into the kitchen, we're back to the Act 2 look, indicating that Lisa is in fact still around.
What do you mean?
I turned my back for a second and Lisa drowned Liam. I lied to the police, but she wouldn't stop, so I drove her to the forest.